Hello, Neil Amy here. Welcome to another Rayobyte story. Today I have Mr. Zoltan Betenboek. I always forget how to pronounce it, but he'll forgive me because I'm so fortunate to consider Zoltan a friend of mine. We've gotten closer and closer over the years, and what he does in his spare time is just so inspiring to me. He's the most curious guy I know by far. He's always doing something new, working with his hands, and we talk a lot about that in this episode, as well as some really interesting stuff about what they're doing on the scraping side and where the scraping industry is going and how AI is impacting that and how anti-botting is impacting that. And so this is a multifaceted episode with plenty of cool stories and perspectives from one of the greatest CTOs in our industry. So hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thanks for watching. Sultan, we're here. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you again.
Yes, tuning in from Hungary. What city are you in Hungary?
Yeah, again, it's a very nice wine area. I love it. It's like you walk a few hundred meters and you get to some very nice wine cellar places that it just makes you feel good.
And you, as I've experienced, are quite the wine connoisseur.
I wouldn't say that, but I love wine. Yes, yes.
well, I listen to this. I was just at dinner with some other scraping and proxy enthusiasts yesterday, and I asked I'm in the Netherlands right now, and I asked the waitress, younger girl, and I said, "Hey, can I have a house cab?" And she looked at me weird, and she didn't know what I meant. And I looked at my friends. The one guy is 40s from France, nevertheless, a wine region, and I said, "Is a house cab not a thing?" And he's like, "Well, usually that means like the cheapest possible." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I'm no
interesting.
connoisseur. I don't. Is that just an American thing? Have you heard that term? Would you order a,
I don't I know I never heard that, but there's a saying here which probably relates to that. Like when you ask people, it's like, "Have you ever had a bad wine?" And they go like, "Uh, "I did, of course." And then how well was it? I say, "Oh, good."
yeah, yeah,
So it's like
okay, yeah.
some people say that you just can't have a really bad wine. I think it's wrong, but.
Yeah, right.
It's all up to how you like it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, one of your many I found fascinating being around you and Egger, sorry, and one of your fascinating hobbies. The other one you sent to me recently was an underground water sprinkler system. Tell me about that project and what you did there.
It's done. So I I was upset. Probably this is how most startups, start, right?
Yeah, here
I
we
was
go.
I
Yeah,
was I was upset that I went to a few professionals and they gave me such a crazy quote for an automated water irrigation system. Is
yeah.
it how it's called? And I said, no, I can do it, and I can do it better. And it's done. I have
Yeah.
like five sprinklers. It took like a weekend and a few days, and it's watering the non-existing grass right now. But we are going to plant grass soon, and then it will be all a complete package.
How do you, like I'm picturing like what would go into that? You would have to have some digging materials, or maybe you dug it by hand. You'd probably have to draw out on a piece of paper some like circumference of what the water pressure and all is. That
That's
did you?
exactly how it did. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
How
That
does
was that
how
was
do you how do you find that? Like, what, do you search online like DIY underground water sprinkling system?
I'm really bad at reading how-tos and manuals.
Most men are,
To
I
be honest,
hear, but
most men and
I
most
don't believe
engineers
that.
are.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's true. I'm very bad at this point. I think I actually should have read more about this.
Uh-huh.
But yes, I went online. I found shops. They explain, the radius of this thing, how much area it can water, and then I did a little bit of a drawing, um, and then I adjusted it to a point where it covers the entire land, and then it now works. I mean, time will tell, right? how
Right,
how
the dead
how
spots.
well how
Right.
well Gross will be happy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm
We'll see. We
picturing
we are
like you have these nice circles, but then in the middle it's just like a beautiful like brown like diamond or the
that
spots.
that can happen. I reserve the right to mess it up.
Yeah.
So,
So what do? You lay them down on top of the ground to see where? Then you see it on the dirt. So you see it like wet on top of the dirt, or how'd you like do the placement before you started digging?
no, I just drew it. So
Uh huh.
it all looked good on paper, and then I started
Oh,
to dig.
and then you started
This is
digging, hoping that your water
yeah,
pressure
yeah,
was good, hoping the
exactly.
pump was strong
Exactly.
enough.
Actually, I was very cautious. Something that uh, historically my dad failed to do. That I made sure that different sprinklers are controlled differently. So I can even turn on one, meaning that if
Uh-huh.
my water pressure is not strong enough, then it can still handle all of them, just not at the same time. So
Yeah.
I think I did the precaution
Uh-huh. Good. Yeah.
steps here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, this is. I mean, again, one of many hobbies. The other one that I remember the most being there and eager with you is your. I would call it a man cave, but like in the U.S. anyways, like how we would define a man cave is one of two locales on your property. One in the basement, a nice big cozy basement with a big huge screen TV, nice couch, and of course a beer
Yeah, it's not
fridge.
fine.
Or your garage, same kind of thing, a little bit more rundown. But in either case, it's a big screen TV, beer fridge, and NFL football, and that's the man cave. But I saw something different when I was in your basement, and what I would
Yeah.
classify. Tell us about that.
So that's an interesting story and takes me back to I don't even know when in time, many years. Is that I always thought about myself as an engineer. I mean, I am, but I'm software engineer. But I always had this feeling in myself that an engineer should know all these things because that's why you're called an engineer. Time proved that it's not actually true. Like I've met brilliant software engineers who couldn't even change a light bulb. I
Yeah,
guess we are the same. I've been always on the side that I need to know all these. So I love to do things like welding,
right.
machining. I have two mills downstairs. I have a lathe. I have a 3D printer. I have a laser cutter. And to be honest, the room is getting crowded
Yeah,
there.
right.
I'm already thinking of switching the gym with that room because
Oh,
that's
there you
larger. But
go.
I mean, I would actually miss the gym then, so probably not.
And the lathe, that was the word I was looking for. That's the chemistry experiment, right?
No. The lathe is the one that you can turn material
Oh,
into concentric shapes.
right,
The
right.
chemistry
What
part is about electroplating. Like that's something that
electroplating? Yeah,
I really want to learn. It's difficult, and I'm not spending enough time there. One of my hobbies is my one of my recent hobbies is restoring old watches.
yeah,
And in order to like properly restore some of these old 1960, 1980 ones, uh, you need to replate the case because they just get worn. And I'm trying to learn electroplating for that reason, but it proves to be difficult, like to do
yeah.
it really well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
What happens if you do that wrong? Does it
it will
corrode?
just be ugly.
Uh-huh.
so
Like
so
a bad
the
color.
bad color, weak surface, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean that brings me to like what my greatest appreciation and admiration for you is just your sense of wonder and in an inventor mind. Where does that come from? Where where in your life can you identify a moment or moments all the way back to your childhood that like you recognized you just had this like fascination to experiment and play around and tinker and actually do it. A lot of people think about like, oh, this would be cool. They have good imaginations, but then they don't maybe act on it. But I'm seeing you not only imagine but act. Like what where does it come from?
Good question. I don't really know. Probably the things that I can somewhat remember from my childhood is that I was always fascinated by the fact that there are these AC outlets on the wall, and they are just so powerful and dangerous. I mean, as a child,
Yeah, right.
that you should stay away from them and so on. That was told, and I was always curious, like what is that thing that people keep me away from, and why? And then ex- weird things happened. I admit that. Like I've put things into that, and then I get shocked and so on. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
I was a child, sometimes wondering why I'm still alive, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
now that I have a 2.5 year old son, I'm super happy that he's not doing these things yet.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I was always this curious how to always curious to find out how things work and why they work the way they do. It's like probably a big box of broken table clocks prove
Mm.
that in my parents' house, because I disassembled all of them trying to find out how they work, and then they never worked again.
Yeah,
That's just
right,
how
right, right,
I
right. So were your parents, were they, did they have this extraordinary sense of curiosity, or do you have siblings? Did they?
I have
Did you?
two siblings, yes.
Hmm.
No, we are different, really, really. Maybe my dad has a little bit of that. He's an entrepreneur as well. He's
Uh-huh.
been doing his own business for, well, quite a while now. I think probably like 30 years
Yeah, well.
or so. As a matter of fact, recently I also joined him, so we are now partners in that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
um,
And what is it? What is
so this is a company really old, dates back to I think 1993, and we're making wooden windows and doors. So it's
Yeah,
like beautiful. I would say handcrafted.
yeah.
That's a new word that most people like to use, and it's basically only wooden windows and doors. Uh,
Uh-huh. Okay, so
that we make.
entrepreneurial. It sounds like at least you had that modeling from your dad. Which, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be
Probably.
curious. You have to be willing to fail. Which, when you're inventing something or you're doing your electroplating, you're constantly failing. Oh, this is weak. This looks like crap, and you
So
try
far,
on
I
the.
have most of that. Yes.
Yeah, right, 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 right. And how about like any like teachers, like any in high school or university? Do you have, or any mentors along the way from childhood
Good
till
question.
even now?
I, I, to be honest, and I really hope my son won't see that. Like 16 years from now, I have relatively bad experiences from schools. Um, I always wanted to learn more and something different than what they taught me,
Mm.
and no, I have this bad uh, experience. I had a few managers and a few colleagues from my professional life from who I learned a lot, um, but those were more valuable to me. Yeah.
Uh-huh. On the school front, tell me more about that. Are you saying that like the rigidity of the school system was a box around you and you felt confined and
I
suffocated to that, or how would you define that?
Good question. I mean, I guess I don't want to go into discussing the qualities of schooling here. As a matter of fact, Hungarian universities are amongst the best on
Mm.
the world. But still, I mean, I always felt it a bit unflexible that in order to get a degree, you have to learn certain things, and you don't have to learn other things that you may feel valuable. And I think most, especially software engineers, can relate that this is a relatively new area, not like being a doctor. So the studies and the material that you have to learn is relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finish your university, you get your degree, you're not necessarily prepared for real life uh,
Yeah.
work.
Did you feel like that happened to you, that you left
Oh, absolutely.
university?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Yeah. What did that look like? So you had a computer science degree, I assume.
I am. I am. I mean, I think of course, I got my degree relatively long ago, but as far as I remember, we have never even been told about Git
Mm-hmm.
or SVN back at those days. Well, as a matter of fact, I think back then it was more about CVS, but that just shows how old I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all these things were somewhat missing. We actually got a very strong um, theoretical training, which was obviously good, but it's really difficult to implement that in real life work.
Yeah. So how did that look coming into the job world? What was your first job out of university, and how did that bridge, that transition go for you?
Um, I think my curiosity probably helped there too because
Mm.
I learned fast.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of my uh, mottos is to do it fast. So then, if you fail, you still have time to do it again.
Yeah.
I did that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I share a similar opinion, and this is about the American schooling system. I also have a computer science degree, and likewise, when I look back, when we're hiring pretty much anyone in our company, but I'll just focus on engineers. Gosh, I rarely care anything about what university, or if they even went to university. The job history matters a bit to know that okay, yeah, they were this role for this size of company for this title. Those things start mattering. But gosh, I never look at a university. Wow, this is a top tier university, because at the end of the day, I mean, when I left my university, same thing, theory, and I,
mm,
I never applied any of that theory. All mine was self-taught before university, and then anything after, I was running the business, not writing code much anymore. But I couldn't write
yeah.
code because it was so in the clouds, in a
Right,
in
right.
a different sense, not the other
Yeah,
cloud.
yeah, absolutely. I don't want to be seen like talking down on the education because I think it's really important to do it right, but I think it's just not enough to succeed in life.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
point here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I will talk down. I'm not afraid to talk down, but I will add it. I will add it. I will add the hope that I have, or the positive side of it. So, yeah, computer science. I could have learned more in 1 year of the same amount of hours I put into my studies. I could have learned more in 1 year doing self taught with Udemy courses, doing
Yeah.
practical real world in 1 year versus a 4 year college that I paid $100,000 for in the U.S. But what I did learn with college, that's at least for us, and how in the U.S. how it works is you graduate high school around age 18. Up until that point, you've lived at your parents' house, you've lived under your parents' authority, you've lived under. I mean, just that the confines of that, the school system, the high school system is much more tighter, no flexibility, and then you go to college, and you're basically said, hey, you got to do this, otherwise you fail. And like, no one's going to help you, no one's going to hold your hand, no
Yeah.
one's going to pay for your rent, no one's going to pay for your food. If you want to go out and drink some beers with friends, well, where's the money coming from? Like, you just like get launched into this period of life where you have to fend for yourself. And that is where I think university plays a big role. The social aspect, learning to grow up, etc. Applying that to your studies, you can't do that without having a studies to go for. So that's where I have mixed emotions about university. If someone says they've never been, I'm most curious about that. Okay, how did you learn to grow up? A lot of people say, well, I went immediately to a job and I started getting real world practical which can be good from a skills side, but I also wonder how good it is for like the social learning, how to the soft skills of life that you learn being around other peers like you.
Yeah, I think I was probably somewhere in between what you described and the basically other end, because because I could rely on my parents for a very long time in terms of like financial help, but I actually left home at the age of 14, so
Yeah.
I was already remote, but I could still rely on them, and they were super uh, helpful. Um, Even though I started to work during university in the last, I think it was the last 2 years. So I started to finance myself, but I was really happy and lucky to have that very strong parental help.
Right.
To be honest, I admire all those people who do the same thing that I did without that.
Yeah.
Like that
Right.
must be
Right.
super tough.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm very blessed. Also, I had small financial help from my parents throughout college too, so they didn't have as much pressure to save every penny, and so yeah,
Yeah,
huge
right,
respect to
right.
such people. So you left at age 14. That's unique, and you're saying your parents continue to support it. Tell about that. That's what was that about?
So we not we I went to a high school that was like not in the same town as we lived. So I actually spent the whole week there, and then I only went home on Fridays. That was I would say that was a kick in the butt at
Yeah.
the early age, leaving the parents' house. But I think it was beneficial because probably that was the thing that made me as independent. Maybe is
Uh-huh.
the right word here.
Yeah.
Uh, at an early age, so I'm happy about that. It was painful, but it was worth it.
Yeah, yeah, painful. Yeah, I want to look at that word and maybe just step back into like the big picture about starting from your childhood till now. Even my question to you is, what do you think's been your greatest challenge of your life, and how did you overcome that? Personal, professional, doesn't matter. Just
Huh.
what comes to mind when I ask that.
Good question. Agree. Um, I think I had a very bad habit. I would say growing up all the way to the point where I was like, I think I managed to to leave that behind when I became like I think like 30 something,
Mm.
which was that I it's not only that I know everything, but I know everything better than everyone else. I
Mm.
guess it's also a little bit of an engineering feature. I would say
Yeah,
engineer feature.
yeah,
Most engineers start to work like that, and then they grow it out, like I did. But it was really a powerful recognition for me. It's like, hey, no, I actually don't know everything, and as a matter of fact, there are many people on the world who know certain things much better than I do. And the interesting part of the story is that I realized it when I was already a manager, like 2000 and something 10.
mm,
Um, um, and when I actually realized this, my life changed, and the way I worked changed a lot as well.
mm.
The way I managed people became better, became more successful. So that was really powerful, though quite late
Yeah.
aha moment.
Well, but I think better than I don't know if the word most is accurate. That many managers have that ego, that power grasp that they want to hold on to,
I think
and
so. Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so what how did that impact you throughout your life up till 30? Like what were the outcomes of that?
I actually had many debates, arguments with people that just didn't actually lead anywhere.
Huh? Yeah, right, right. Explain that.
Um,
Explain it.
it's like it's not a real debate when you go into a discussion with the preamble that you know it better.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's just when you want to push the other person down, right? It's like, no, I know it better,
yeah.
and I'm just here to convince you that I know it
Yeah,
better.
right, right. So
uh,
I'm now chuckling. So I'm thinking, my next question is: did you meet your wife before or after this moment?
After, actually, that's a very good. That's a very good question. This realization also helps people with relationships, like privately. It's like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my girlfriend Laura, I hope she listens to this. Laura, my commitment to you is to learn from Zoli here,
I will
whatever
make
he's
sure I
doing.
send her this
Yeah, right,
video.
right. Okay, so that you'd say that's your greatest challenge, and that probably impacted your personal, but also professional. We're joking about the wife, but I imagine it impacted relationships with friends and stuff. Like, oh, here's that friend that has full of himself or thinks he knows everything. And do you remember how you overcame that? Like, were there defining like moment or book or a mentor that kind of gave you a wake
I
up
think I
call
did.
and
I actually did. Yeah,
uh,
I do. I overcame that by seeing good examples uh, from my life. I mean, from work, like working
mm,
with managers who are curious to hear out other people's opinions, other people input, and then still being able to make a decision on their own, but now with the extra input that they gathered from other people. That I mean, I'm happy to say that one of the workplaces that this actually happened was back when I was working for LogMeIn. Now they are called GoTo. We had a few people there, not everyone, of course, but we had a few really strong managers who showed this feat, and it was great to learn from those guys.
yeah, yeah. Do you want to give them a shout out? Are you still in touch with them this
Yeah,
day?
sure. One of these was actually called Gabor Mailander, who now works for
Mm.
Google
Yeah,
for obvious
for obvious reasons.
reasons.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, he was really inspirational for me, especially in terms of how to make sure that you have all the information and all the input before making this this decision.
hmm
That was really strong.
yeah. Cool, cool. And so I'm hearing you talk about managers who were mentors to you, or it inspired you to help change this and it helped you become a better manager. And so now, as you look at where you're at today, you are CTO of Scraper API. Maybe talk about that journey, how you got to Scraper API, what the role was when you joined, how does that evolve, and where you guys are at kind of as a company in the context of all this too, in your own personal evolution and in the
Yeah.
company's evolution.
So I always tell my managers jokingly that my interview sessions for Scraper API was the longest I've ever had
Oh,
because we were kind of not like continuously, but we were having interviews and chats for almost like half a year
yeah.
before I actually joined, just because it actually happened when COVID hit us,
Yeah, yeah.
and we said, okay, now we don't know what will happen, we don't know how this virus will go down, so we table this, and then we got back to it like half a year later. It's like, okay, is everyone still on board? Yes, okay, then let's
Yeah.
go on. But before that, I think the first well, uh, my first job as a CTO when we founded a company together with a few friends. It was called Fishbowl.
Yeah.
It's an online video presentation flip classroom app, and I was, well, technically called a CTO, but or originally I was the only person
Mm.
working in tech, right? So basically, that's how you become a CTO at a startup.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I actually stayed on this path. And a few years later, actually, I think like 4 or 5 years later, SAS Group, who owns API, reached out and
Yeah.
asked me if I want to
Yeah.
join.
And so you joined as CTO of Scraping?
Yes,
Is that?
exactly, and I'm
Yeah.
still that. Yes.
And what's been your guys' growth, whatever you can share, headcount or what you
Um,
guys publish publicly?
in
Or
so we
double or relative.
we doubled everything. At
Mm.
least there are a few things that we quadrupled when it comes to like revenue, the EBITDA, when it comes to team size. Without going into the details, these are the kind of the the ratios that we
Yeah.
did in the last 3.5 years.
All under your leadership, right? The
Yes,
CTO. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
I don't like to write it up on my Hall of
no,
Fame
no.
sheet because just going back when I actually realized that it's much better to work with people, and my managerial style changed a lot. Right now, I'm at a phase that and it may sound weird, but the best situation is if I don't have to work at all,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
then it means that my team knows everything, my team is empowered, my team is dedicated and motivated to make things happen and make things happen the right way. And I think after 3.5 years, um, uh, we
Oh, lost you
we
for a
got
second. There we
yes,
go. We'll edit that in. Your team's
yeah.
motivated.
So I think after 3.5 years, we got to a point where this is the case. And if I get hit by the tram or I go away
Mm.
for a 4 weeks holiday and I come back, not from the tram thing, but yeah, I'll be sure that things will still go the right way.
Yeah, well, I've been fortunate enough to work with a handful of your teammates, and I can say the same. I'm always wondering, like, what the hell is Zoltan even doing over there? I don't see him. Shouldn't he be doing something like this? And not that they
Yeah,
shouldn't be,
yeah,
but that's what you typically see in most companies. It gets so top heavy, and that
exactly,
the leader of the team. And so you've
exactly.
done an incredible job
Awesome,
making the
thank
team
you.
what it is.
Yeah, and I think that probably starts with hiring the right people.
Yeah,
So I'm happy to say that all our people are just the people that I would rehire if I had to restart.
yeah.
But of course, that also is up to a few things that you have to do as a manager. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to talk about scraping a little bit because you're an expert here. I don't consider myself much of an expert in scraping. We know proxies really well at Rayobyte, but not scraping. So let me start with the. I was gonna say a softball, but maybe it's not a softball. What's your opinion? What does scraping look like 5 years from now?
Good question. Good question. The question is that you know that this is a cat and mouse game, like
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah,
You find a way to scrape a website. The website finds it out that you scrape them that way. They apply some fixes, and then 2 days later, you apply a fix to the fix, so
yeah,
then you can continue to scrape. The question is who wins or who gives up first,
hmm,
because I I'd be happy to see a future where it's not only that scraping companies are responsible, and we can go into what it means later, but also website owners basically realize that hey, we can't actually do anything with scraping. They don't harm us. They just collect data that we publish on the internet anyhow, and with a few limitations, they just let things happen. Now, The question is, will that end the business of scraping? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the reasons that scraping companies exist is actually that this is
The
not
fact they
how it
can't
works now.
lose. Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So you're
Um,
saying, let me make sure I'm getting that right. You're saying you could see a future where companies realize it's not worth fighting for anymore, and then they make it so easy to get their data, or they make it accessible via an API that is affordable enough. Is that what you're implying?
Maybe not with the API part because that would require effort from them,
Yeah,
quite a lot actually.
yeah.
But maybe technologies like Cloudflare, Datadome, they are just not going to be used as much in the
Mm-hmm.
future
Wow.
because, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because, as I said, I was just at a conference the other day, and the guy I was with does a lot of anti-scraping, anti-botting work, and he has the other opinion, which is like eventually it's gonna get so hard to scrape that novice developers, people who are just getting started developing, won't be able to build a scraper. Right now you type on Google how to scrape with Python, and oh, it's scrapey, and you can go do it. He thinks that it's going to get to a point pretty soon where it's going to be so easy to integrate anti-bot like Cloudflare's data domes, a simple JavaScript or a simple DNS in front, that immediately all websites will have such advanced anti-scraping that novice developers will no longer even be able to build a scraper, and it then moves to a model where it is just scraping APIs like what Scraper API offers. With Rayobyte, I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh shit, we're a proxy company. That means less people will need proxies to do the scraping because they can't anymore. I'm curious what your opinion is on that stance.
Well, to be fair, science showed that it may be true. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think. We have seen many obvious evidence that it's getting harder and harder to scrape sites. It doesn't mean that the cat and mouse game is over. It's just they're just shorter iterations. They release something to block us in the morning, and then we have to find the bypass in, I don't know, 2 hours. Um, um, I Good question. It can happen. Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then the question is, won't that affect visitor experience, like real life human visitor experience?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be honest, one of the, I would say, easiest way to block scrapers is to make sure that you you make every human visitor of your website validate themselves somehow, like solving a relatively hard to solve captcha, or even go to all the extent that you implement some kind of KYC, and you use some third party KYC firms to make sure that all your visitors are actual people. Now, obviously, that would deter scraping companies away from your site, but then that will probably also affect user experience for like real life users visiting your site. Do you want to go down that path? I don't think
Mm-hmm.
so.
I
And
think
then
the argument there is that the technology is getting close enough, especially with the advent of AI, that those false positives will be so low that they'll be able to separate very clearly, here's scraper traffic, here's, but that's the opinion. Do you think we're close to that, where false positives could be so low, where the experience isn't affected?
I think every technical security measures can be bypassed.
Uh-huh. That was the next point. This guy I was talking to, he gave the opinion. He said humans are resilient essentially, and so like, whatever gets deployed, there's gonna be some way to figure a way around it, unless you get to the point where it's so tough that yes, the user experience would be crippled by
But I
it.
mean, that's exactly the sentence you just said can be said and stays true regardless of you are saying that about bot blockers or you're saying that about scrapers, right? Like,
Repeat that again in the context.
can you please repeat your sentence?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I,
about
I,
the humans being yep,
right, humans being resilient as the anti-bot companies keep deploying more and more updates and using AI. I think humans will always find a way to get around that if the data is
exactly,
publicly accessible. So that the only way to really crack down is if it's like again hurting the user experience by
exactly.
passkeys and things like that.
Exactly. But that's also true for both blockers, meaning that with every, I would say, bypass technology that scrapers
They're the
release,
reverse. Yeah, yeah. It's the cat and mouse.
they
They're
will
in the
be
cat and
able.
mouse.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I have a conspiracy here. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but this is one that I have. I'm asking for the $1 trillion companies, your Googles, your Amazons, your Facebooks of the world. They surely have smart enough people that could quickly identify which IPs is traffic, which IPs is bot traffic. I mean, they just have to have so many signals across billions of people that it just seems so unlikely that none of these companies have figured out a way to like completely block it. So I'm asking, here's where my conspiracy starts. Why are they not doing it? If we can assume that at least one of the companies out there that have so much money, smart people, billions of user data points that they could figure this out, but none of them have. None of them have like blocked off 100% of block traffic. Why not? My opinion is that I think they want that traffic. I think the more people who are scraping Amazon means that people are taking that data in and they're saying, huh, what does Amazon prices say? Oh, let me go make a competing product and go put it on Amazon, or let me go see what the reviews are and I'm going to get my reviews better. So it makes people use their platform even more. Google, the same. If people are scraping Google results, that means you're tracking your rankings for SEO to see how well your website's ranking. If Google blocked off all the rank tracking, you wouldn't know how good you're doing on Google. And you could argue people may say, screw Google as a place to have my website that I desire for my website to be on the page one. What do you think about that? Any merit to that?
Can happen. I I I I think it it's more complex than that, but your theory is strong, at least on one side of the thing. Is that I have a friend who also has a startup, and this guy said, "Oh, I'm so upset with all these fake users that they do automated signups to my website and then basically leverage on the free plan that we offer, and then they leave." And they've been fighting against that for a very long time. Just to after a few months or maybe a year, realize that if they actually did the math and calculate how much money they would lose or they would lose because of these automated free signups, it's actually way lower than what they would pay for the cheapest bot blocker technology. That would still not give them
Mm.
100% safety. So I think combine that with your theory, they probably realize that financially it's just better to let it happen at a
Mm-hmm.
level. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
You're
I
saying
guess
for
it
the
comes
big
to
companies, they're saying that, but I guess I'm arguing that they would have in-house knowledge that they have enough data scientists that have these billions of points that they like a Google could know with their internal team without. But are you saying it would be so expensive to keep up on that that they're saying that it's not worth it?
well. Let me ask you that: why doesn't Datadome or Cloudflare provide 100% safety?
I
They
would I
probably
would
also have this, the required knowledge, right?
right. I would assume it's based on false positives. Companies say no, we don't want to lose a real customer and have them blocked. But that would be my assumption. What do you think?
I think it probably leads back to our previous statement that basically every technical block can be bypassed.
Hmm.
It takes time. It takes time to find out how, but I mean, we have bypasses for all the major bot, bot blockers right now. Cloudflare, Datadome, Perimeter, all these things. They are
Hmm.
super advanced. Still, we found a way to
Yeah.
bypass that.
Yeah. Where does the like the bypassing? Talk about some of your experience here. Where does that evolve? The current technology stack is you have a proxy, and there's different variations of quality proxy. There's data center, ISP, residential, even mobile. That which gives you quality as you go up, and then you go hop over to the more of the software side, which is you can use browserless scraping, use browser head full scraping, or just no browser scraping for again increases of quality to bypass the bot detection. Where do things go from here? Again, 5 years from now, what trends are you seeing that you think things will go away, things will change materially?
Well, we already see the trend that we need to use more and more residential and mobile IPs to stay afloat in terms of bypasses. Same with rendering. I think this will continue, and low quality IPs will slowly probably die out
Yeah.
because they are not really reliable anymore, or maybe it's easier to say that it's just easy to detect those. And we have seen a shift in the last, I would say, half a year, that I think we quadrupled the data that we push through residential and mobile networks compared to last
Well,
year.
that's great for us as proxy companies.
That's great for you, right?
It's
It's great. I'm sorry
magnitudes.
that we are slowly scaling down on the DC part, but I mean
Yeah, right,
that's
right,
what we
right.
need to do. But yes, we are slowly scaling up as well on the residential and
Yeah, we
mobile
did a we
mobile
did
side.
a presentation at last year's Zeitz Extract Summit where we talked about we shared our story as Railbyte, the proxy company that we call it the death of DC, which we've
Yeah,
just
right.
seen for 3 years, a slow, painful death, and residential is going faster growth, fortunately for us, and so that's what I'm seeing too. So I'm curious beyond that, the trend towards more headless browsing in residential. What are kind of those like maybe they're not needed today, but maybe those like the crossing the chasm, like the the innovators part of it. Like are there technologies you're seeing that people are experimenting with that aren't really needed today? You can just kind of throw a residential proxy and great, it works. But are there things today that people are experimenting with that may be the future?
Um, I think more and more bot blockers rely on browser features, meaning that they fingerprint them, they do JavaScript fingerprinting, device fingerprinting, and all these things. So we also see a shift that the number of rendered requests on our side are increasing in order
Mm-hmm.
to properly bypass some of these things. So yes, I think that's a trend that's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I obviously impacts our businesses so much. The question of what does it look like 5 years from now, but I have hope for any other scrapers who are out there. The cat and mouse is so fascinating to me. I don't think it ever ends. I think there's going to be someone out there that will always find a way, and they'll open source it or they'll spread that knowledge, and the fight continues.
Actually, let me ask you a question because uh, this has been a quite a long discussion on our side in terms of which direction to take the product,
Yeah.
and you know, people people actually don't want to scrape. Like scraping the web is such a painful,
Yeah.
such a time consuming, resource consuming, money consuming thing that I'm pretty sure that if people would have the choice not to do it, they wouldn't. They just need data. That's
Right.
all they need. But it's like it's like you know your company is making drills, but what your customers actually need are holes. Like,
Right.
can you sell holes?
Yeah.
Probably not,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
but
Right.
where does that lead us in terms of next few years?
The future. Yeah. Right. Well, I think it would go back to what I said a bit earlier, which is I think as the cat and mouse gets harder and harder, I think slowly over time it'll get tighter and tighter. Fewer people will be able to become a beginner scraper. It'll be so easy to use Cloudflare DNS, and that'll block. And sure, there'll be open source projects. Hey, here's how you can get around, but it'll start getting so trickier. And there'll be still the tinkerers out there that'll be like, yeah, I'm going to solve it. And there'll be plenty of those at the cat and mouse. But I think that percentage starts shrinking. And when you get to that point, I think the people who need data then I think come to a scraping API and get the fully loaded HTML one. But then, as you're saying, and I agree, I don't think most people want the full HTML. Well,
Yeah,
they
right.
don't. They want the parsed results, which is the final data outcome. So I think, yes, you get to the point where you're calling in, and there's plenty of services that offer that already, where you call in and you just get a JSON back or into
Exactly.
your data warehouse of those data items. But why do people not do it today? Because those options are available. I would say usually they charge higher for those prices, but I don't know. Maybe I can pull us back to the start of our conversation today. Is the inventor spirit, the curiosity. It's much more fun to do the cat and mouse one's self than
Yeah.
to just pay an API. So there'll be other script kiddies out there that will always do this, I think.
That's true. That's probably true. The question is, are we going to make enough money from these guys,
Yeah.
or we need the
Actually,
large?
sorry. No, one other point. Actually, I'm now remembering my talk from the other day. I think one of the greater drivers of why that's not ever going to transition fully to the data sets, essentially, or data APIs, is for the intellectual property. When a company, if they're raising capital from VC, private equity, and they're going to investors and say, yeah, I got this great data platform and it has all these great widgets and analytics and dashboards. I think the investors are saying, okay, how are you getting that data? And they're going to have to say, well, we're completely dependent on this one vendor who provides this data stream. Maybe they have other sources too. But what hurts them is there's now this loss of intellectual property. They no longer can say that I built this and we can. This is a leg up from our competitors. We can do it cheaper because competitors,
Good point.
if someone can internally do it cheaper than paying, let's say if you have a data API, they now have a leg up on their competitors. That's intellectual property value, and that has money.
Yeah.
Money's value.
I guess that all comes down to the line to where you draw the line, because what I usually say is that if you have a company or a startup, the way you should decide what to build and what to buy is you build your core business, you buy
Right.
everything else. Now, in your theoretical example, this company may draw the line where they have maybe like a very sophisticated way to extract data from websites, like from HTML itself. Then I would say I would suppose that they are never going to build a scraper. They will rely on a scraper API like us, and then they will still keep the parsing and that very
Mm-hmm.
sophisticated data extraction from websites on their side. But then I can also imagine, well, I mean, I know that there are many companies who don't even want to deal with that because they say, okay, our bread and butter actually comes above that, where we
Mm-hmm.
already have the clean data, and then we have
Right.
this, I don't know, magical thing what to do with that.
Right.
These companies will probably say, "Hey, I don't want to deal with even the parsing of the HTML. It's just I just need data clean."
Right. Right. And I think that'll be unique to everybody. I think each person, each company will make that decision. What do we want to buy? What do we want to build? And they could be in the exact same industry. And for one reason, maybe they think they have a talent or they can do it cheaper, or they think that intellectual property will increase their valuation more than what the competitor thinks. Maybe the competitor, is thinking more higher level in the stack versus the lower in the level. And I think we're one example at Rayobyte. I just did a talk the other day that we do all our hosting on bare metal servers still. And I tell people that, tech people, they go, "What? Bare metal? Oh my God, have you not heard? You've been living under a rock? Have you seen those clouds up in the sky?" I'm like, come on, slow down, buddy. But yeah, like if we were hosting our bare metal on in the cloud, our profitability would just go away 20%. Our gross profit margin is 20% is gone.
Exactly.
And so we decided that a long time ago when cloud wasn't as much of an option or as it was growing. But now people say, well, why not migrate over? It's gotten cheaper. Now you can work on your core business, which is, a distributed IP proxy network versus managing physical servers. But I believe it gives us a competitive edge to our competitors who are paying those higher premiums. We got the process, right. We got the team in place. And that's a unique case where we fight the trend.
I don't think it's actually unique even. That's your core value, right? You provide proxies. So basically, why would you outsource the management of these, right?
Yeah,
so
of the servers,
I think
right.
it all makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. I don't know where we got down that track. Oh yeah, anti-scraping technology is the future. You brought up that you're talking internally about data sets. You see other competitors offering data sets or data APIs. Did I understand it right with my assumption that would be like a JSON parsed results for any target website, or are you thinking data sets in a different way?
I think it's a combination of a few things. We last year released a feature called Data Pipeline, which is basically like an automated, fully managed way to extract data from sites. It works great. People love it, but we also had to realize that only solves the issues for one layer, and we still have a few other layer of customer needs that we need to handle. So I think my theory still stands that people want data, not scrape, but that data should actually be provided in a few different ways, and there's no like one size fits all things like, okay, data sets will solve everything. We are now working quite heavily on structured data, meaning that we want to release more and more API endpoint, easy to use, stripped down API endpoint for specific domains that will give you structured, clean data that will, together with the data pipeline feature, that will cover a big chunk of our user base's needs, but still not full. So yes, we'll probably need to tap into the data sets.
Here we go. I got an SEO keyword grab here in the transcription. AI. How is that? How does that impact scraping? And particularly, you mentioned structured data. Is AI? When I say AI, I'm saying the big OpenAI, Gemini, Cloud. Yeah. Are they at a point where they can do the parsing for this, for the structured data, or where do you see the future of that?
Yeah.
How does that apply?
I think the way technology stands right now, they can certainly do the parsing of the data of the raw website into structured, clean data, but it's still there are still a few challenges with that. One is consistency, meaning that you really need to be very, very cautious what to prompt AI with, because depending on your prompt, of course, you get different results. And one of the key requirements of people who need structured data is consistency. Like the same field appears the same way every time with every request, even after tens of millions of API calls. The other challenge is time and cost together. So if like like on a large scale, like where we work, we serve customers with multiple thousands of requests every second.
Hmm.
Uh, Involving AI to parse all those
Yeah.
requests wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just
Right.
it's not. I think AI is super powerful to create parsing rules.
Yeah.
So you involve AI at the uh, at the reparation phase, where I say,
Right.
okay, I utilize AI to define the parsing rules for a certain site, and then potentially a well-educated large language model would be able to create parsing rules for you that can be then used on the fly
Yeah.
to parse that site.
I
Uh,
understand that's when I think about that case, I think about the many Chrome plugins out there that let you like point and click to get your. I mean, you can use it in Dev Tools, but there's a lot of Chrome plugins too to like to point and click. So if I'm a user of yours, I'm thinking if I had a plugin where I can just click on the page and it highlights, you know, the $10 for this product on Amazon, and it grabs the CSS or XPath selector. Isn't that enough? I mean, that should take someone to build a template, a parsing rule, a parsing template. That should take them just a few minutes to build.
exactly.
I would assume. And so, like, are we overcomplicating it with AI, or how do you see the difference between where the technology has always been with these plugins to AI now doing it for you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Creating a parsing rule without AI is really simple. The most difficult part comes after it's done, not when you're making it.
Okay.
So um, I would say injecting AI into that phase of the job can actually seem overkill. Yes,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's unnecessary or unuseful because we also use technologies like that internally to create parsing rules, and sometimes it actually helps surprisingly. Like if you ever tried one of these Chrome extensions to highlight parts of the page that you then want to parse,
Right.
you soon realize when you go into like more complex pages that it's not always actually easy to highlight exactly what you need
Yeah.
because it's just the DOM is messed up. It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
super complex. Some data is just so deep in the DOM tree that it's just not easy to highlight the exact thing.
Yeah.
AI can help there. Yeah,
Yeah. Right. 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 Okay.
especially if you think about non-technical users, because there's actually a vast ocean of those who want to get data, want to get public data from the net because they have an awesome idea, they are launching a startup, or they actually have one
Yeah.
already, but they are not technical. For those people, it can be challenging to create parsing rules like that
Yeah.
without AI's help.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you see AI contributing to in the scraping realm other than parsing?
Um, we have a few ideas, but to be fair, most of those ideas come one level above scraping. So
Sure.
I have this somewhat famous triangle. The way I usually explain how this data collection works, and there are three layers there. Uh, the the lowermost layer is basically all the infrastructure that supports scraping. So proxies, hosting, everything that's basically low level infrastructure
Right.
related things. The middle layer is the web scraping part. That's where the smart unblocking technologies come into place, IP rotation rates, limiting header generation, and so on. And the top is basically structured data and what you do with that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think AI can play a very
Oh
big
yeah.
role in the top
Absolutely.
layer when it comes to what to do with the data. I
Yeah.
mean, if you just think of that, that's like a match made in heaven, like
Yeah. Yeah.
right, like AI data. That's how
LLMs,
it
yeah,
works.
with
Yeah.
natural
Yes.
language. Yeah, right,
Yes.
right, yeah, right, right. So you talk about that pyramid. Something I struggle with as a proxy owner, and you as a scraping owner, leaders, is explaining this to my friends, to my family. What do we do? What's your elevator
We make
pitch
money.
when
No, I'm just
right. Yeah, well, I have it even more difficult because people hear proxies and they go, "What proxies? You mean you're hacking people?" It's like, no, we're not hacking people. But let me sit here and defend myself for a half hour now. But I'm curious how you explain scraping to the common person that's not in tech, maybe even. What's your 15-second elevator pitch?
I think scraping is the technology that lets you collect data at a high scale, exactly the same way as you would do if you would browse the internet. That's how I would
And
explain what web
give me
scraping is.
one practical example that would resonate with most people.
You can navigate through Amazon and take your notebook and write down all of the prices for all of the wireless mice from Amazon, or you literally take 15 minutes, invoke a few API calls, and you have a list of all the prices on your computer in a file.
There you go, bingo. I see. I always used to use the Amazon one, like the price comparison, but then I thought, as consumers, I'm not sure what like a CSV file would actually do me that well. I actually like looking on the page. There's more like kind of like qualitative, like like
Right.
how's the whole page presented to me? Do I like the looks of the reviews? Do the reviews seem legitimate? And that kind of gets messy in the structure. The one that resonated with me the most lately. This is for anyone else listening that maybe scrapers and deal with this the same problem. But I've saw this clicking lately, and I've been doing this for 8 years. So I finally like figured out the one that people go, oh yeah, that makes sense, and it's hotel and flight search engines. When you go search for a flight, when you go search for a hotel, you have a listing of all the different airlines or all the different types of hotels, and it's usually listed in order of lowest price to highest price. Booking.com, hotels.com, Google Flights,
Right.
Skyscanner,
Yep.
all these sites. What they're doing is scraping. That's how they get that data and present it to you, the consumer, so you can have the cheapest price possible. And people go, oh, wow, yeah, I use search engines for that exact reason to get the lowest price possible.
Exactly.
Scraping makes it happen. Oh, cool. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Anyways.
actually, that probably leads back to your very very early version about why sites like Amazon and Google actually let scraping happen,
Right,
right?
right there.
Because
Because those search engines, yeah, right.
exactly, and like
Yeah,
they actually institution what's the right word here? Institutionalize this off the why because I'm sure like I don't know the real history of all these companies, but I'm sure they probably started with scraping, but after a few years, they actually got to a point where site owners provide APIs for
yeah,
these booking.com, and so they don't scrape anymore.
right,
They
right,
they get the data through APIs that site owners provide, and that's
right,
probably a point where I would say the cat and mouse game ended, and
right,
site owners realized that hey, I mean, it's better for me to provide an API
right,
for these people because then it helps me.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. And the rest of us are left to fend for ourselves
Exactly, exactly.
with
And
the
then
good
you
fight.
hack people, right?
Yeah, right, right, right. Oh, okay. Well, we're at over an hour here. We can wind down. Thanks so much, Zoltan. As I shared at the beginning, your curiosity is always something that just fires me up. I could talk to you for hours and days, and it seems like every week I talk to you, you're doing something new. You just told me today you got a new CNC machine
CNC,
controller
yeah.
that I'm excited to see photos of whatever you produce with something like that.
I'm excited to see it working first.
Yeah, yeah,
To be
yeah,
fair, thanks.
yeah.
Same actually goes to you, Neil. Since I know you, you're kind of unpacking more and more layers on me, and I love it. So thanks for being a friend.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sultan. Great having you. Appreciate you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you.